Signalis is a game that caught my attention instantly. I had first stumbled upon it while browsing the Steam store page. This trailer was all it took for me to fork over my finest Andrew Jackson. And to be honest, I didn't even need the full trailer. This shot right here probably would have been enough. A game harkening back to the golden age of retro horror games, starring robot lesbians in a part cyberpunk, part Cold War sci-fi universe with stylized anime aesthetics in space. Come the fuck on, man. You had me at of. And, as it turns out, when you combine all the coolest shit you could think of into one game. A cold open, a stranded spaceship, a familiar photograph. Believe it or not, that is the setup of the story. That is all the game gives you to go on. If it sounded a bit enigmatic, or maybe you're just a little confused as to where you are or what's going on, good. Fuck you. The driving force in this story, your task, which is the only thing that is made apparent in this game, is that you are looking for this girl, and what? No, that is a different girl. You forgot which girl you were trying to find already, haven't you? It's been 20 minutes. The game has barely even... This is Elster, or model LSTR-512, the character you'll be playing as throughout the game. She is what is referred to as a replica. The pillars that uphold the glorious Yusian nation. A biomechanical shell implanted with the memories of a gestalt, which is the word we decide to use for human. That'll make more sense to you later. Replicas are essentially tools used by the Yusian government, but it's cool because they are only artificial gestalts, and Bulio's tip of the day says, it's okay to exploit the labor of people that aren't really people. What is a real person? Whoever I say is a real person. Yes, I have read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Slavery isn't slavery if it's in space. On the search for this girl, Elster finds herself in a desolate facility called S-23 Sierpinski. Now, the first thing that might stand out to somebody playing this game besides is that the graphics look like they've been put through 16 zetajoules of modern image compression technology, making the game look like it came out in 1996. Old school PS1 aesthetics have been popping up quite often in indie games recently, as it feeds into the insatiable beast that is your desire to go back to a time when you were actually happy. Combine that with the fact that it gives off a sort of uncanny feel that's perfect for a horror game, and you have what's called in the business easy money. And regardless of whether or not you think it's becoming sort of uninspired or lazy to do this, you have to admit, I was a wreck the entire duration of my playthrough. And in keeping with those classic horror game aesthetics, this is not a first-person walking simulator, but rather an isometric survival horror. And in keeping with my mental health, this is not a game that uses tank controls. If you're too young to know what those are, think about it like driving a Segway on quicksand. But instead of driving a Segway on quicksand, you're replaying Resident Evil 1 on your computer. Move! I'm kissing a fucking railing, dude! This shit still sucks. Pretty much everything else is in line with old school survival horror, though. You have to slow down and aim to shoot. You have a very small amount of ammunition. You have an assortment of guns, the pistol, the elephant rifle, the problem solver. And you have to make the decision to either give in to the unrelenting urge to blast every single enemy in your path, or have enough ammo for the boss fights. A gameplay loop so sound that it's worked for 27 years and counting. And sticking to that formula, we of course also have to have the rule of 6. Personal property is a privilege and item management is a given. Why would you ever need to carry more than 6 things at a time anyways? That would make you a filthy capitalist pig. And you know what happens to those? Oink. Oink. Yes, you have to pick your 6 favorite items and run back to a save room every time you find a new item and realize that you're bad at inventory management. No, I don't give a fuck how many more runbacks it takes. My signed copy of Ratatouille doesn't leave my inventory. God damn, I love that little rat. Save rooms, they're here. To no one's surprise. A designated spot to save, a brief moment of comfort, and a price to be paid when you die in the form of your time. I'm sure this won't trigger some type of over-precautionary paranoia resting latent inside of me, forcing me to save after doing literally anything. I couldn't imagine that. And as par for the course, we also have to follow the same classic survival horror mission structure as well. locking everything behind a bunch of random puzzles, making every door you come across feel like it's been set up by the Riddler. To get into this room, you need to go collect the penis key, but the penis key is locked behind the ball sack door, which is unlocked via a series of deliberately engineered puzzles which you need 16 used band-aids in the left eye of Horus to actually access. Where is any of this? Somewhere. Probably. But that's part of the appeal, and the puzzles did strike a decent balance of difficulty, sitting somewhere between Kindergarten Baby Easy Mode and PhD in Astrophysics. Around a 7th grade level of logical reasoning is needed here, which is fine. It's not hard enough to impede the flow of the game, nor easy enough to make me feel like I'm playing a PlayStation exclusive. Let's talk about camera angles. A rare sight in today's gaming landscape. Long gone are the days where every horror game had the camera 50 feet away from the player. I mean, just pick a random one out of a hat and I would bet my signed copy of Ratatouille that it's either going to be in first or over the shoulder third person. Shit, even games that used to be like this are getting remade like this. And it's no coincidence it makes you feel like you're part of the action, something that is seemingly important in the game that is trying to scare you. For example, when I'm here, I can almost smell the putrid stench of El Gigante's unwashed asshole. Not so much if I'm all the way over here. And I know it's a little hard to tell right there, but that was actually supposed to be a positive aspect of first and third person camera angles. It's originally used due to the technical limitations of the systems at the time. This style has mostly become a relic of the past, especially in AAA horror. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and forget the golden rule. Old good, new bad. There's a decent argument for this even in the present day. When used correctly, they can enhance the player's suspense or make them feel like they're even more cornered and helpless than they already are. And of course, there's something to say about the visual artistry that comes from making sure a player can see exactly what you want them to. However, I can't really recall any moments that made this isometric camera angle used in the game really stand out to me as particularly beneficial in that sense. And while I don't hate it, actually I would go so far as to say that it's fine, I can't help but think that maybe adhering to the new norm might have been the way to go. Because the enemies aren't coming after me, they're coming after her. And I'm just watching the whole thing unfold through my CCTV camera. Hold on now, brother. Hold on. Watch out. Oh, goddamn. God. Despite that, cramped corridors and oppressive enemies did lead to many moments in which my EKG would resemble that of a breakcore audio visualizer. And playing this game on the hardest difficulty means you're typically only 2 hits away from death at all times. Being a man of incredible talent, I never really had to worry about all of that, but combine the low health with the lack of ammo and the amount of times I would find myself having to lock in as I frantically scramble for the door to the next room are too many to count. And there is one particular enemy, this guy, Gal, who is less of a corrupted abomination and more of a vicious malware, because this thing blasts your screen with pop-up ads and radio frequencies, forcing you to adjust the radio conveniently implanted in your skull to match to the correct frequency. This will allow you to deduce which monster is the real one. Have you ever been browsing a sketchy website? Just a site you know you probably shouldn't have open on your computer, real shoddy construction, riddled with ads, probably adult film related, and you go to click on something on the page. Unbeknownst to you, 3 new web pages open up, prompting you to frantically close these forced redirects, praying that you didn't just nuke your computer with 16 petabytes of spyware. This fucker is that. I can't think of an enemy in recent memory that has made me as panicked as this. And when they put other enemies in the same room, god damn! But the longer you play a game, the more you feel like you can deal with the enemies therein. And this game made the mistake of letting an athlete like me play it, because by the end of it, I was dodging and weaving, sliding off of enemies like I was Barry Sanders. And the more certain you become of something, the less daunting it becomes in turn. Thankfully, the most frightening thing about this game is not the gameplay. A sad and cruel world. Political discord is rampant. Families torn apart. Big Brother is always watching. And the common folk are starving, exploited by powers much greater than them. Every soul a cog in the inexorable machine, replaced when they are worn down. Signalis is also sad. You know, typically in a story one would consider depressing, the sadness therein fluctuates. You know, sprinkle some comedic relief here, maybe a brief moment of happiness there, allowing the audience a break and bolstering the actual sad moments. Signalis, on the other hand, is like an incurable disease. It is like a fatal car crash comprised of only orphan puppies. And much like my autobiography, follows a 3-act structure. It starts off sad, continues to be sad, and somehow gets sadder. I know they say part of horror is seeing bad things happen to good people, but I'm having a hard time seeing anything through these tears. a game set in the anti-penultimate stage of a galactic war between the Yusian Empire and the Yusian Nation, a group of insurrectionists now in control of a majority of the galaxy, and seemingly not very good at naming things. As I said earlier, this great nation is built on the backbone of replica labor, mass-produced artificial people who derive their names from various bird species. LSTR, STAR, KLBR, ADLR, who happens to be the only man in the game. Let's go, fellas. We got one on the board. Each model is specialized to perform a specific job. And I'm talking about real jobs too, not like them fake sissy liberal jobs. You know, we got police officers, mechanics, miners, God himself put in the body of an 8'2" woman, hubba hubba, please step on me, mommy. You know, just real honest blue-collar jobs. And all of that is really just the backdrop to a much more ambiguous story. Now, when you see notes or journal entries scattered throughout a game, one usually assumes they're just an optional bit of extra lore, not really needed to understand what's going on in the main story. Not this game. Everything I just explained is told in notes. To even begin to grasp what is going on, you'll need to read every single note you come across. Otherwise, wait, hold on, where are you going? I promise it's not that bad. In Act 1, I mentioned that at its core, the premise of this game is that you are trying to find a girl. The problem is, you don't know where the hell she is, who the hell she is, where the hell you are, who the hell you are, why the hell everybody turned into a grotesque aberration, why the hell everybody's trying to kill you. In short, you know nothing. But by the time you finish the game and read all the notes, you'll probably still feel like you know nothing. And that is where YouTube video essays come in, baby. Come on now, lore deep dives, Wikipedia pages, or you could be like me and take the road less traveled. Meticulously read through every single note, play the game multiple times, see every ending, read through the notes again, create a conspiracy board, watch the cutscenes again, read the actual literature that the game takes inspiration from. How the fuck do I still not know what is happening, man? This is a game that is very obviously influenced by other works, and it isn't trying to pretend otherwise. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Evangelion, Ghost in the Shell. The King in Yellow is a novel that is not a novel, but really a series of short stories. The King in Yellow is also not about a king called the King in Yellow, but rather about a play about the king in yellow. The written form of the play, a book called The King in Yellow, which is the catalyst in 4 of the 10 short stories in the real world book called The King in Yellow, like the actual book. Like the play doesn't exist. The play is made up. The real book, The King in Yellow is an actual book. It actually exists. I'm like me. I'm a real person. The legend tells of a 2-act play. One would read the first act and think nothing of it, categorized by its banality. All would be well and good if you stopped there, but if you even catch a glimpse of the second act, you are sent into a frenzy, transfixed on the words leaping off the page, piercing your brain like tiny daggers. Your grasp on reality wanes and your sense of self is overwrought. All forms of rationality relinquished, leaving only a delirious simulacrum of a person that once was you. It's like the third item in the game. You gotta pick the book up. You can't continue the game unless you pick the book up. Pick up the book. Now, is this supposed to be the book about the actual play or the book about the play? I don't know. H.P. Lovecraft is a guy who was very influenced by this work of weird fiction. He is also a guy who popularized a genre which is now known as cosmic horror. And what does he have to do with the story? Oh, would you look? What is that? Oh, fuck it. Just a line directly taken from one of his short stories right there in the introductory cutscene? It is public domain after all, so I guess our short story. Now here I am playing this game, waiting for some big Bloodborne-esque pull back the curtains moment to reveal that the big boss bad guy is actually the protagonist of a hentai. The uninitiated wouldn't have any expectations, but for those familiar, they might as well have had a big sign that says cosmic horror here. But you never really get this one though. If I haven't made it clear already, this game is not. Everything feels like it is obfuscated. It is trying to confuse you every chance it gets. For example, there are just random German and Chinese writings in here. I already only had a foggy idea of what's happening. Now I gotta pull out Google Translate to understand what you're trying to tell me. Like, for all I know, this sentence that flashed on the screen for 2 seconds in German could have been the linchpin, the key to explaining everything. I mean, it wasn't, but how would I have known that? And to illustrate this point even further, here is a map of all the locations you go in this game in order. You start In a crashed spaceship on a faraway planet, go into a large hole in the ground and find yourself in a small room, watch a video, and somehow you are now in the bathroom of a government facility on a different planet. You descend the facility to the mines, jump down a hole, wake up on a small beach, take a quick pit stop in... die in a scarlet wasteland. Oh look, there's the ship. Wake back up on the ship. You can't just spend one night in Cancun. Back in the government facility, things look a little bit different. Jump down another hole, which lands you in... Eastern Europe, and then finally finish the game back on the ship. No, yeah, you did kind of die though. Remember how I said there wasn't one of these? Well, there isn't, but this is probably the closest we get. Here we learn that Ariane Young is the name of the girl you're looking for in this game. It isn't this one, it was actually this one. She's a human, just like me. And much like the King in Yellow, the first act of this story starts off very normally. Like normal for horror game shit. Point being, you aren't fully aware of the scope of what is happening. Sure, there are these psychopathic anomalies trying to kill you, but if you're anything like me, you were chalking this all up to some sort of pathogen or evil AI. But the game continues, and while it seems a bit cliche, every hole you jump down, every fleshy opening in the ground you have no business getting near is like delving into another layer of madness. And as anyone who has ever smoked crack before knows, with madness comes knowledge of the greater truths of the world, and in this moment, this singular cutscene, you realize you are absolutely cooked. Bioresonance is a power. The power in which everything in this game is based around. Everything that has happened because of bioresonance, and while its true nature is unknown, it is the power that has allowed the thoughts of real people to be copied and implanted into robots. It is the power to dream new realities, create empires, bend the world to your liking, and most importantly, it is the power to transmit gay thoughts into the minds of others. There are people in this world that can control bioresonance, and Ariane happens to be one of them. She also happens to be more nuclear than a fish in Fukushima circa 2011. See, these two were on a little voyage, part of a government program called Penrose, an initiative to find new hospitable planets to add to the Yuzhin collection. Now, if you confine two people in an enclosed environment over a long period of time, it is only inevitable that they will either try to kill each other or start banging. Go on and take a guess. But uh-oh, it looks like the ship they're on is only good for about 8 years of continuous use, and there seems to be a little radiation leak in the cooling system. To put it simply, she has cancer, space cancer. You are dead, but not the you now, the you then, because you aren't the same you here, or the yous that are here, or even the yous here, you are the you here. Is this making sense to you guys? There are a lot of theories as to what actually happens in this game, and if I talked about them all, this video would probably be like 3 goddamn hours. You can go check out the Signalis subreddit if you want to deep dive into those, but throughout all of these theories, there has to exist some sort of connecting strings. For example, we can see that there are people in this game that have been infected with Ariane's memories, fragmenting their own, seemingly a product of her bioresonance. We can see that there are multiple versions of Elster, all trying to fulfill this promise that she had made with Ariane. You know, when that pussy's so good it transmogrifies the minds of all the different versions of yourself into believing they're the same corporeal essence. That doesn't really roll off the tongue very well. We can also see that the rules of space and time are shifting, as demonstrated by that piece of shit. And when the barrier separating dreams from the waking is warped, what becomes reality? What is the scariest part of horror? Is it the moment where something is actively trying to kill you? I mean, sure, it's probably the most intense. It does get your heart rate going, you know, get your balls quaking a little bit. But in my humble opinion, that is right. It is probably the moment before that, when you don't exactly know what is after you or where it is, because it is in that indeterminate moment that the threat exists anywhere and everywhere, which sort of ties into the nature of cosmic horror, something that is indescribable, a representation of a lack of order in our world, something that concerns you, but you are ultimately powerless towards. I mentioned Bloodborne earlier, which I think takes a more loose approach to this type of horror in the sense that you actually end up fighting these powers, arguably in the metaphysical. Regardless, you gradually ascend to their level. They are another challenge to be conquered. In Signalis, you have no sway. You are just a leaf caught in the flow of something you aren't even sure really exists. This game instills a feeling of insignificance in you as you tread through this nightmare as Elster, a seed that grows the further you get. The more you discover, the more dreadful the situation seems, where the only thing anchoring you is a promise made in a life you doubt was even yours to begin with. there are 4 endings in this game, and a game with multiple endings, you'd think there'd be a good ending, right? A bad ending maybe, perhaps a true ending. In the first ending I got, you find Ariane in a pool of blood, presumably hers, choke her to death, and then die. Would you believe that's the good ending? Or maybe not. You know, actually, maybe you like this ending where, get this, Ariane forgets who you are, forgets about the promise you made, and then you die. Not feeling that one. Okay, all right. How about the ending where just before entering the room, just as you're about to see the girl you've been looking for the entire game, you falter, walk out to the middle of nowhere, and then die alone? Woo! Come on now, baby. That's... there is no good ending to this story, just different versions of the same cycle of tragedy, because, you know, you really can't have feelings of insignificance without mixing in a little bit of hopelessness in there as well. It'd be like having pancakes without syrup. But I did say 4, and there is a secret ending where, in your second playthrough, if you collect 3 keys hidden in places you would not find without a guide, you will be treated to an ending that somehow clears up everything and nothing. Here we see different versions of our protagonist, each with their own tombstone. We see some more text that I can't read, which translates to Bible quotes that might loosely signify that maybe you have somehow ended this cycle of pain. And also there's that thing. You're seeing that too, right? Now, I know what you're thinking, okay? Bulio, you said there was no eldritch gods in this shit. That looks pretty celestial to me, dickhead. And my answer to that would be this. This is a real line in the game, by the way. I didn't write this. Because how do I know that anything that happened here actually happened? This story has been just loose enough to give us shit to go on, but not clear enough to make anything seem overwhelmingly correct. Is this actually a god or just some manifestation of Ariane's mind due to a tradition on her home planet? Maybe this whole game is actually just some delirium brought about by picking up the King in Yellow, or maybe it's just a coincidence. Are we inside of Ariane's dream, or has her dream leaked into the real world? Nothing feels concrete, and every explanation is merely conjecture. Why tell us everything when not being able to trust anything is that much more dreadful? But at the end of the day, there is one thing I can be sure about, and it's that at its core, Signalis is just a tragic love story between a dying girl with the powers of a god and the hundreds of robots that are trying to kill her. And they say there is nothing in this world that is scarier than falling in love. Besides maybe like horse-sized spiders. I mean, holy shit, can you even imagine?